So welcome everybody to Samui Real session number 205. Hey! Just before I introduce Jeff, I'd just like to say thank you to Awakening in Health and Dennis O'Connor for actually making this video, the editing of it, and the sound, and putting it out there for our group so other people can see it. Thanks, Dennis. Okay, so Jeff Brown is American-born, raised in the state of Oklahoma with an agricultural background. He lived and worked in the Middle East and Africa from 1980 to 1990 in livestock genetics and grain trade, where he learned fluent Arabic and French. Then to China from 1990 to 1997 in grain trade again, where he worked with Qingdao Brewery to make beer with U.S. malting barley, helping the People's Liberation Army with aquaculture. Interesting, aquaculture, and then installed, opened, and managed McDonald's first bakery on the mainland. In 1990, he became a French citizen. After entrepreneurial adventures in France and the USA, the latter where he was forced into bankruptcy in 2008 during the subprime rape of the middle class, he returned to China as a teacher in international schools from 2010 to 2019. Jeff wrote the China Trilogy, which includes 44 Days Backpacking in China, 1, China Rising, 2, and Big Red Book on China, 3. His website is www.radiosinoland.com. Radio, that's RADIOSINOLAND.com. I'll post this all in our Telegram group later. He created the China Writers Group and founded Seek Truth from Facts Foundation. He is also a co-founder and the curator of the Bioweapon Truth Commission. So Jeff can be reached at Jeff@Brown, is it Langlois?
Langlois. Well, the S is silent in French, but yeah, it's Langlois with the S.
Okay, throw that in for us. Good one, Jeff. Okay, I'm going to post this. So I'll post this in the Telegram group as well. So Jeff, you are friends with Matt Ehret, Cynthia Chung, and the like. Is that right?
Well, Matt and Cynthia.
In Canada. Are you familiar with them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've done shows together.
Okay.
We've done a number of shows together.
Okay, wonderful. So unfortunately, a few people like Dr. Eamon McKinney and some others in the group couldn't make it physically here tonight, but they will be joining us by Zoom. And we have a few people around the world on Zoom. So first of all, you take it away for 38 minutes. We'll dim the lights, and then we'll, when you're finished, we'll just go into the Q&A. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Folks, are you ready?
We're ready. So everyone, a big hand.
All right.
Jeff Brown. Thank you.
Folks, I'm going to be covering a lot of ground tonight. So to help you follow along, I've numbered each topic sequentially with a title. My whole presentation is 40 minutes. I look forward to your questions thereafter. Number 1, introduction. I would first like to thank Pat Kell and Dr. Eamon McKinney for inviting me on your program tonight. I am sincerely humbled and honored. I'm going to talk about China tonight. I have a unique perspective because I lived and worked here in 1990 to 1997 during what I call the Deng Xiaoping Wild East Buckaroo days. Then went back to France, then back to the United States, and then came back to China in 2010 and stayed here for another 9 years for a total of 16 years. The interim stays on both sides of the Atlantic were very formative perspectives for my second round in China. Last year, I came back to China to live in Taiwan province. At 71 years of age, I hope it's my last move. Topic number 2, Amir and Jeff's excellent China adventure. Fellow China Writer Group member Amir Khan and I just finished a 3-week tour of China where we concentrated on what are called red tours, which are extremely popular right now. The Chinese people are gaining a growing awareness of their almost unfathomable communist revolution, civil war, and how China became liberated from the fascist Japanese, from fascist KMT and Chiang Kai-shek, and from the Americans. Just like after World War I, where the Allies' still blood-soaked bayonets were turned on the Russian Revolution, the Americans' still warm weapons were foisted on the Chinese communists starting in 1945. A lot of people don't know that after 1945, the United States dedicated 100,000 soldiers to China, not on the front lines, but with the full force of America's Air Force, Navy, and Army in terms of bombings, transportation, materiel, and weapons. This is a tour I've been wanting to take for many years. It is truly an amazing story. Amir quotes Nelson Mandela, who said it is a miracle that the Chinese Revolution succeeded because it was so improbable. There were so many pitfalls, so many mistakes early on, and there was so much brute, genocidal force against the communists between the Japanese, the KMT, and the Americans. It truly is a miracle that it became a reality. What I learned on this journey is that no matter how much firepower you use, how much violence you attack with, you cannot defeat a dream. The dream of the Chinese people was to be liberated from foreign occupation, opium, and then starting in the 1870s, morphine and heroin that was being pumped into the population by Britain and the United States. The Chinese yearned for freedom from rape and plunder at the hands of the Judeo-West and occupying Japanese. In order to achieve that goal, 36,400,000 Chinese gave their lives, a staggering statistic that almost no one knows about. Never forget that from Mao Zedong to Xi Jinping, China's current rise, called rejuvenation by the Chinese, started in 1839 with the people's humiliating loss against Britain in the First Opium War. Only in this context does Mao's famous quip about China's 200-year war make sense. It's been a long, hard climb ongoing, and I'm looking forward to 2039. Amir and I are doing a series on my website called Amir and Jeff's Excellent China Adventure. We have done 20 posts so far, made up of short videos with transcripts, captioned photos, articles, and commentary. I really encourage you to take a look at them. You will see a China that most foreigners don't know and need to understand. There will probably be close to 100 posts when the series is finished. Like the first book in the China trilogy, 44 Days Backpacking in China, our series is a serious travel log built on a geopolitical and socioeconomic backbone that takes a richly deserved, jaundiced view of the Judeo-West going back 3,000 years. Topic number 3. Eveline and Jeff's Excellent China Adventures. The observations from Amir and Jeff's Excellent China Adventure are supplemented by the fact that my partner, Eveline, and I have spent another 4 months over the last year and a half traveling around mainland China. Taken together, my observations tonight will be based on traveling in the provinces of Guangdong, Guangxi, Hunan, Anhui, Jiangxi, one day in Fujian, and then Shanxi province up in the north. All our travels involve spending lots of time in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th tier cities. It costs 56 euros to take a taxi in Paris to Charles de Gaulle Airport. Eveline and I get electric taxis so cheap in China, only about 70 or 80 euros for a full day for the driver to chauffeur us around, driving the length of Guangdong province or getting 80 to 100 kilometers outside of whatever city we happen to be in, stopping and looking at villages and small towns, etc. Amir and I also had a chance to visit a small town about 120 kilometers outside of Changsha, where he teaches at Hunan Normal University. Therefore, while I love the first tier cities of Beijing, Shanghai, Chongqing, and Guangzhou, all of my observations are based on one second-tier city, Shenzhen, where I lived for 3 years, and then all of the others are 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th-tier cities, all the way down to small towns with just tens of thousands of people and down to villages with thousands of souls. Topic number 4, the Chinese people continue to evolve. In order for you to understand what I'm about to report on today's China, you need some proper perspective. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The Chinese people who you're seeing during Amir and Jeff's and Evelyn and Jeff's excellent China adventures are not who my family and I experienced in the 1990s. In the 1990s, China was a street level, mean, cruel, corrupt, mendacious, lying, cheating, swindling, capitalist concrete jungle. Unfortunately, in my first book, 44 Days Backpacking in China, I blamed this behavior on the Cultural Revolution, which is wrong. I now realize that by any psychometric measurement, what would be considered psychotic behavior in the 1980s and 1990s, 1980s and 1990s, China was not due to the Cultural Revolution. It was due to Deng Xiaoping's wild East buckaroo days of unchaining the dogs of capitalism onto the streets and into the halls of government, industry, and the military. Why did Tiananmen Square in 1989 happen? This shift to bare-knuckled capitalism created tremendously criminal, get-rich-quick, no matter what it takes behavior in the population. There was no corruption nor crime during the Cultural Revolution. That's why there was Tiananmen Square in 1989. It was not because of phony illusions of Western, quote, democracy and all that. That was all Mossad, CIA, MI6's contrived and managed color revolution. The Chinese were upset about 1, nepotism, cronyism, corruption, and violent criminality at the highest levels, down to local neighborhoods and small businesses. 2, inflation was almost 30%. And 3, the markets were completely turned upside down, transitioning from Mao era's planned and assured economy. Therefore, there were a lot of shortages everywhere. That was why the Tiananmen Square protests happened. Mea culpa. Unfortunately, I made this who's to blame mistake in 44 days, but it drove me to write my second book, China Rising, to get to the truth, because I knew there was something wrong about my analysis. I then brought everything full circle, expanded on it all to write China Trilogy book number 3, Big Red Book on China. Capitalism at its best. Thus, you are not seeing all the capitalist psychosis we lived with every day when my family and I lived here in 1990 to 1997. From top to bottom, Chinese society was doing what Judeo-capitalists do best. The government was corrupt and criminal, so the people adopted the same corruption and crime. It was street-level war every day. I'm not exaggerating. Just to get anything, to do anything, to go anywhere. However, strangely enough, it was very addictive, like a drug rush. It took a long time to deprogram from it all when we moved to France. Why did Deng do it? Deng publicly stated that to reach communism, China could not wait 300 years to replicate the West's industrialization, not to mention it took colonialism, imperialism, slavery, and genocide to make the Industrial Revolution, quote, succeed. Thus, like Mao Zedong trusting the masses to fulfill the successful goals of the Cultural Revolution, Deng trusted the citizens to shrink 300 years of capitalism into 30. It was harrowing, risky, and as Tiananmen Square in 1989 showed, came close to crashing the Chinese Revolution into a balkanized Western resource whore. But it worked in the end. The citizens came through. A generation later, and the Chinese are prosperous and harmonious again, back to their communist, socialist, Confucius, Taoist, Buddhist roots. Chinese changes. So our journeys just go to show you that people can evolve. The Chinese are continuing to evolve. They changed for the better and are not stopping. Why? It comes from leadership. Citizens emulate their governments. This is a very Confucius concept. Chinese leaders trust the people, and the people trust their leaders in kind. If leaders practice the golden rule, then the people will emulate them. This is why Westerners are so lying, thieving, corrupt, and criminal, because their Judean, plutocratic, authoritarian leaders have been cacocrats 98% of the time for the last 3,000 years. Hu Jintao writes The Collective Ship. When Hu Jintao was elected president in 2002, he began to alleviate this mass capitalist psychosis. Why? The Chinese people, like we were exhausted, burned out, sick and tired of all the environmental filth, pollution, and wanted back Mao-era harmony, equality, and justice. They were demanding changes for a better life. Tiananmen Square in 1989 was just a clarion call. Who heeded their cries, seeing that this train wreck was unsustainable? It worked. His administration brought back Mao's universal health care and lots of other socialist legislation for the masses, so people were not literally dying on the streets like they do in the United States because they can't afford to go to the doctor, hospital, or find a place to live. Xi is using Mao's playbook. Then when Xi Jinping was elected president in 2012, ongoing, his administration was and is accelerating the Chinese people's unbelievable transformation, harking back to the clean and lean glory days of the Mao era, stomping out corruption at every level, cleaning up the environment, and making the masses more and more prosperous. Well, now that you know what it was like back in the 1990s and the 80s and 90s, here are my observations about today's China. Number 5, cleanliness. Think of China today as a Singapore the size of the United States, but a lot more fun and fascinating. Cleanliness at all levels, from Showcase Shenzhen with 17 million souls, drilling down to the smallest villages, is stunning. Neat, clean, green, and organized. Street sweepers are everywhere you turn, even weeding around the sidewalk trees. Garbage is collected nightly. If cleanliness is next to godliness, the Chinese are already in heaven. Public bathrooms are now 800 meters, every 800 meters in 4th, 5th, and 6th tier agglomerations in public parks. They are so clean you can eat off the floors. There are photos of the working janitors on the restroom walls, some in formal dress, their personal mobile phone numbers, and a complaint line if you do not get satisfaction. It's the same system for the local cops on the beat everywhere you go. Accountability is universal. I ask you, do you have your local policeman's personal mobile phone number if you have a problem? Why so many bathrooms? Because like my family in the 1990s, the Chinese were sick and tired of literal shitholes for bathrooms if you were lucky to find one. They demanded change, and the National People's Congress passed laws when we were in Beijing 2010 to 2016. Laws were also passed for garbage collection. We were all disgusted with mountains of fetid garbage everywhere we turned. It takes a lot of money and muscle to keep a country the size of China so stinking clean. How can they afford it, you might ask? The answer is simple. China has so much fuck you money because they are not spending trillions of dollars in euros on genociding billions of brown and black people with bombs, drones, and sanctions. Interesting side note, the Beijing 2008 Olympics were a massive catalyst for many daily life improvements across the country. 1 billion Chinese were glued to their TVs for 3 weeks and saw all the nice amenities Beijing had for foreign visitors, like Rosie the Riveter and black soldiers who re-entered civil society after World War II in the United States, demanding equal pay for good jobs. The Chinese wanted the same things that the capital had, and they got them. Interesting factoid, guess who was handed the Olympic portfolio in 2007? Why, none other than some guy you may have heard of, Xi Jinping. Number 6, China is greener than the West. Along with all this cleanliness comes greenness and environmental consciousness. Everywhere I explored, the land, the waters, and air are living an unimaginable renaissance. In the 1990s, I was working in agriculture, and every year traveled thousands of kilometers across the provinces to conduct field surveys. I can tell you the environment was downright ugly and frighteningly polluted. Not anymore. I don't know if it's still true, but for a number of years, China was reforesting 1 Ireland a year. That's right, the land area of the country of Ireland planted with trees year after year. Not to mention, you may have read or seen on YouTube, Moscow-Beijing, my name for the government, is reclaiming thousands of square kilometers of sand dunes and desert, making them green again like they were many thousands of years ago. The most remarkable transformation I saw was on the Loess Plateau in Shanxi province. When we traveled there in the 90s, it looked like Mars, a barren, eroded moonscape. At least where I journeyed, it is all now covered with trees and shrubs. Simply amazing that all this has been regreened. Number 7, infrastructure. When we lived here in the 1990s, driving outside of Beijing was like driving off a flat earth. It was fun adventure, but harrowing. When we came back in 2010, there were good main arteries and some good secondary roads, but further out, it was like back in the 90s. These days, we expect world-class infrastructure in China's first-tier cities, which are Beijing, Shanghai, Chongqing, and Guangzhou. What is so stunning is how now, like the cleanliness, infrastructure is being drilled down to the smallest locales. Great asphalt roads and good bridges are everywhere. Elevated 4-lane highways and train tracks crisscross the hinterlands. The smallest towns and villages don't have metros and public buses. They have people-owned shuttle buses that cost next to nothing to get rural people to their prefectural or county seat and back to run errands, see a doctor, take care of paperwork, or take high-speed or slow trains from there, since all prefectural capitals and county seats are served with 5,500 train stations, including 1,100 for high-speed trains. It's phenomenal that what was once only found in the bigger cities is now accessible across all the boondocks. Think about this. The USA has thousands of small towns that are boarded up, and in Europe, they are dying a slow death. Do I dare say it is Judeo-capitalism versus communism socialism? Number 8, housing for hundreds of millions of masses. Another remarkable phenomenon that I saw everywhere we traveled is the millions and millions of subsidized low-income housing, now even down to the smaller towns, kilometer after kilometer of them, stretching out to the horizons. In the middle of bum-fug nowhere, in Guangdong, Hunan, or Jiangxi provinces, for example, there can be an off-ramp from a 4-lane highway or a slow train station stop. There are smallish concentrations of factories, sometimes just one big one, and the subsidized housing needed to keep the local community thriving. I'm sure they have the same shuttle bus system as the rurals do for daily convenience. China's subsidized low-income housing is not Hong Kong-style shoeboxes and cyclone fence cages bolted to walls in near shanty towns. I'm speaking from experience because my family and I lived in one in Beijing for 4 years and in Shenzhen for 1 year. These are 20 to 30-story apartment towers, of course, with elevators, each 75 to 105 meters squared, 2 to 3 bedrooms, 1 full bath, big living room, full kitchen, terraces, with one of the latter serving as a utility or laundry room, served by 1 to 2 yuan per ride, people-powered electric buses. These apartment communities are the so-called ghost towns that the Judeo-West loves to bloviate about so much. Again, speaking from personal experience, our Beijing apartment was in one of them at the start, and it was a growing community when we moved to Shenzhen 4 years later. This is why China has 80+% home ownership, including the rurals. And since they are subsidized by Beijing, why 70% of them are paid off free and clear. I'd like to not have to send a mortgage check to the Judeo city of London every month. How about you? I'm not even going to ask a rhetorical question and just come out and say it. This high quality of life and visionary planning for the masses can only happen in a communist socialist country. Number 9, urbanization has come full circle and back out again. As my observations have noted, China's post-liberation urbanization concentrated on bringing hundreds of millions of rural citizens to first and second tier cities. Now they're reversing gears and tempting people to go back to their third to sixth tier cities by offering subsidized low-income housing, high-speed new generation slow trains, cheap public buses in the agglomerations, and manufacturing and services nearby for employment. A prime example of this is Xiong'an, the new 22nd century city built from the ground up outside Beijing to take pressure off the capital. Urbanization will continue to reach its goal of 80% of the population, the same level the USA has. China became a majority urban country in 2011, and it is now about 67%. The USA became majority urban in 1915. Yes, there will be the super cities of 50 to 100 million residents in the Pearl River and Changjiang, or you might think of it as the Yangtze River deltas, the Beijing, Tianjin, Shijiazhuang, and Chongqing, Chengdu complexes, but they will be balanced with high quality urbanization in the lower tier train-connected cities. Number 10, I have never seen so many high-tension electric pylons in all my life. It is dizzying. They crisscross and run parallel through isolated forests, mountains, and along ridges, left and right, all the way out to the horizon. Like American wages since the 1970s, U.S. electricity production has been flat for 20 years, stuck at 4 terawatt hours. China's is already 9.4 terawatt hours, 2.4 times more than America, and it will increase to almost 14 terawatt hours by 2030, 3.5 times more than Uncle Slaughter. That's in only 5 years. My observation is that much of this power is going to rural areas and third to sixth tier cities. Electricity production is the lifeblood of economic activity and productivity potential. Please convince me that we're number one, God bless America, has the world's biggest economy. Number 11, China's farmers are more prosperous than many, if not most Westerners, by going back to collective production. You have probably been brainwashed by the Judeo big lie propaganda machine that China's farmers just loved Deng Xiaoping's neoliberal household responsibility system. It's simply not true. The farmers to this day much prefer Mao-era collective farming. Since 1978, they have weathered the storm of all the Deng-era reforms and are very prosperous. Land taxes were abolished in the 2000s. Hamlets and villages look like picturesque postcards straight out of rural France. Farmhouses are 150 to 300 square meters. 2 to 3 American stories tall, or 1 to 2 European stories, and electricity is wired in everywhere. Most important, why all this prosperity? My observations are that many villages, if not most, have decided to informally go back to collective farming and implements, not individual plots. The average plot of farmland per rural family is less than 0.4 hectares. That's less than 1 acre, or 3,900 square meters, only 62 meters by 62 meters. That's a Chinese farm. Everywhere I went, I saw huge fields of corn, rice, sorghum, which is used to make Maotai, tobacco, fruit orchards, lotus and aquaculture ponds. They are clearly not being managed in 0.4 hectare plots. I also saw what looked like collective pigsties. I suspect they are also collectively rearing egg layers and broilers, although each family will usually keep a small home garden for fruits and vegetables. It makes sense. Most of these hamlets are clan-based, meaning they each have their same family bloodlines going back centuries, all having the same last name like Wang or Zhao. Go to the next valley and it's the Li clan. Next valley over, it's the Chins, and on and on. The farmers prefer to collectively farm, keeping it in the family. It's more efficient and profitable. It took a couple of generations to come full circle, but it looks like Mao's vision won the day. So much so that Xi Jinping pushed to pass legislation to prevent all government officials and entities from trying to neoliberalize any farming community that is collectivized. Number 12, the Chinese people are communist socialists, damn it, and have been for 3,000 years. I have written so much about this topic and really lived it, but I will give you some brief comments why the Chinese have always been communist. If you want to dig deeper, please read the China trilogy. In China, the people own fire. By that, I mean finance, insurance, and real estate. The banks, stock and commodity markets, insurance companies, and all land are owned by the people. No one can buy 1 square centimeter of dirt in China. Not Xi Jinping, not McDonald's, not you or me. How many other countries can say this? The only ones I know of are communist socialists. And to be blunt, they are the only ones that have been able to rid themselves of the Judean city of London and its humanity-destroying usury and forever wars. It's funny, Westerners kind of, sort of begrudgingly accept that Vietnam, North Korea, Cuba, and other countries are communist and have similar economic systems to China, but mention China and suddenly it's capitalist. It has to be. Just look how successful they are. But that's gross denial, turning obvious logic on its head. The Chinese are so wildly successful and very spoiled, truth be told, compared to us long-suffering Judeo-Westerners, is because they are communist socialists and have been for 3,000 years. In 1980, Shenzhen was a sleepy fishing and sea salt town of 20,000 residents. I lived there 2016 to 2019. When I got there, it had 12 to 14 million inhabitants. It was growing so fast, no one knew for sure. Since then, it officially hit 17 million a couple of years ago. That means it added 3 to 5 million people in just a few years, and nobody even noticed. Let that sink in for a moment. No squalor, no slums, no shanty towns, no beggars, no homeless people, no street crime, spotless, beautiful, with people-centered infrastructure everywhere you turn, millions and millions of subsidized low-income housing for the masses out to the horizons, financed by people-owned banks, on people-owned ground, and protected by people-owned insurance companies. Now, Try closing your eyes and imagine replicating that in the West. Go on. I don't know about you, but I see horrific scenes from the movie Soylent Green and worse. Number 13, Mao is the main man with the plan. Here is another anecdotal experience I have lived countless times across China. We all know that Shenzhen is the town that Deng Xiaoping built. There is his big striding statue atop Lotus Park overlooking City Hall and just one of the city's amazing skylines. Deng is, of course, front and center at the Shenzhen Museum. I had lunch with an 82-year-old man, Mr. Tseng, whom I met in a small noodle restaurant. We're going to see each other again and meet his wife when Eveline and I go back to the mainland in November. He moved to Shenzhen in 1993 from a small town in Guangdong and said he is thankful for Deng making Shenzhen what it is today. And he is right. Shenzhen is a global dream city that the Judeo-West cannot even begin to imagine. But go on Main Street, go into all the mom and pop restaurants, small shops and businesses, and you usually don't see Deng's portrait hanging on the wall. Now, if there's a portrait, it's of Mao Zedong. You might see a portrait of Deng hanging in the Marriott Hotel or the offices of Apple. But working class and small entrepreneurs know it's Mao Zedong who butters their noodles, so to speak, without whose never in human history accomplishments Deng's reforms and opening up wouldn't have lasted 24 hours. You all have been brainwashed to believe that Mao was a depraved, genocidal madman who woke up every day trying to figure out how he could kill another million of his citizens while using his bloody claws to pick moss from his vampire fangs. There are only two possibilities. Either you are right and the Chinese people are stupid and brainwashed, or the Chinese people know the truth. It's not really a tough choice. Do I go with the Judeo big lie propaganda machine's tsunami of xenophobic vomit, or do I listen and learn from the Chinese people who lived it and continue to live it? Number 14, Xi Jinping has adopted Mao Zedong's playbook for the 21st century. Amir and I visited the Self-Sufficiency Museum in Naniwan, south of Yan'an in Shanxi province. Mind you, I have visited scores of Chinese museums over the years. But this time, as we were looking at the displays, I had a fortuitous epiphany. It was like a hand came out of the wall and slapped me in the face. All of Mao's language about the communist revolution, socialism, and self-sufficiency, the latter which deeply influenced Korea's Kim Il-sung, Vietnam's Ho Chi Minh, and Cuba's Fidel Castro and others, counteracted the US's and Chiang Kai-shek's economic blockade against the communists. All this same language has been adopted by current President Xi Jinping. I can now see that what Xi has done is take Mao's playbook, dust it off, and adopt it to today's realities conditions, which helps explain Xi's incredible successes. Now that I can see it, it's uncanny, but true. These days, in every museum, there are quotes by Mao and Xi. There is Mao thought, and now Xi thought. Study Mao. Study Xi. Mao is the core. Xi is the core. Rally around Mao. Rally around Xi. They are like bookends to a glorious 8-decade string of successes that have made the Chinese some of the most spoiled and prosperous people in the world. It subconsciously resonates with the Chinese people like an atavistic umbilical cord connecting them to the Mao era. Number 15, conclusion. If you have not visited China, go. Just go. You will see what I mean. I know Mandarin, but many Chinese are wanting to speak English. Phones are translation machines now. Chinese train and phone apps are available in English. You can get around. Just go. Most OECD citizens don't even need visas anymore. If you can, try to visit third-tier cities like Hefei, Nanchang, and Chaozhou. I promise you, you will be gobsmacked. Finally, never forget that the Chinese people have been unstoppable for 5,000 years, except for the unfortunate Judeo-Western, opiate-soaked century of humiliation, 1839 to 1949. Since then, they have regained their millennial communism, socialism, fused with their millennial Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism. If this socioeconomic and cultural civilization can be maintained, the Chinese nation will endure for another 5,000 years in the face of relentless Judeo-imperialism and capitalism, whose days are definitely numbered. Thank you.
Check. Okay, sorry about that, Jeff. My mic cut out there. Thank you very much. Everyone give Jeff another hand. Could someone just grab the lights on those side? Yeah, thank you. Okay, Jeff, absolutely inspiring, very informative. I learned a lot tonight about a lot of things I didn't know about China, but I'm going to open the floor up to questions, and let's fire away, guys. Shoot those hands up. Okay, let's go. Mike first.
Thanks, Jeff. That was a very positive view of China, but what are the negatives?
The negatives are that they overdid COVID. They overdid the COVID lockdowns, I think. Their jabs are not as dangerous as the Western jabs, but they are causing illness and death in China, but not nearly at the same scale as they are in the West and around the world, where everybody got the Moderna and Pfizer shots. Chinese democracy is not for everybody's taste. You cannot go out on Tiananmen Square and hold up a sign and say Xi Jinping sucks, because that would be a loss of face for the people and for the society, and it's pointless. It doesn't prove anything. However, I can, and I have actually done this. I have actually not about Xi Jinping, but I've actually gone into City Hall, and I've actually gone into my neighborhood communities, and I have and registered a recommendation or made a complaint. I can go into any Chinese, government entity and make a complaint about something that's going wrong. The Chinese are the most survey intense people in the world, the Westerners don't like that, because they want to get out on this, they want to get out and get ad hominem, insults against the prime minister, against the president, against the Congress people, you can't do that in China. It's a lot of people. There's 1.4 billion people, and 94, what is it? No, 96% of them live on 46% of the land. So basically, the eastern coastline and the southern coastline are packed with people, and the western part out where Xinjiang and Tibet are, and Qinghai and that area, it's no man's land. There's nobody out there. And in fact, for Amir, and one of the posts I did of Amir in our Amir and Jeff's excellent China adventure, I just left my mic on at a train station in Hunan, just so people could hear just how loud it is. So it's loud, it's crowded, people bump into each other. If you spend all your time saying "excuse me" when you touch somebody in public, you will never get anywhere. People, there's just it is crowded. It's a different system. It's a whole different way of daily life. If you don't read Chinese, it doesn't matter to you. But since I read Chinese, there's propaganda everywhere. But it's good propaganda. It's propaganda to make people be better citizens, to be more cohesive, to be more cooperative, to be more harmonious. It's like kind of like what we would call public, what like Smokey the Bear in the United States, or please don't be a litter bug, that kind of stuff. But it's much more serious. It's about maintaining social cohesion and harmony and doing the right thing. A lot of Confucius style. Since you don't read Chinese, if you don't read Chinese, you don't notice it. But I read everything, and so if you read Chinese, that would probably bother you because you would see it everywhere. The other thing that that you might not like is the fact that the media is extremely tightly state managed. Most of the media is state owned, thank goodness. The Chinese demand it. They don't want MSNBC. They don't want Australian Broadcasting Corporation. They don't want BBC in their country. And they trust the government to tell them what's going on. And I think the average Chinese taxi driver and the average Chinese waitress is better informed than most Westerners about what's going on in the world. And I'm not exaggerating. And they're fighting corruption. Corruption continues to be a problem. Xi Jinping has just got his pedal to the metal, trying to stomp out corruption. They've had terrible corruption in football. They've had, in industry, in government. They have disciplined, jailed, fined, and executed, even done a number of executions of egregious corruption cases that actually harm people. But the total of all of that totals about 5 or 6 million who have suffered, being caught being corrupt, but they're still going after it. So it's like another world, and you either like it or you don't. And I like it. I think their democracy is much more democratic than ours. And so, that's my answer.
Thank you. I also hear that they suck at football, according to Franz Vandenbosch.
Yeah. They're terrible. Well, they didn't even make it to the playoffs. They didn't even make it to the play. Their football really sucks. Actually, the biggest sport in China is basketball. They are absolutely basketball nuts. Did you know that the second team match in the world, the first one was in the United States at the beginning of 1895, and since the United States, had all these pastors, and preachers who were in China, trying to convert them all into Christians, which it didn't work, but they brought basketball. And the Chinese loved it. And the second basketball match probably in the world happened in China, and they love it. Yao Ming, I don't know if you all follow NBA. I'm from Oklahoma. They just won the NBA champs, the Thunder. But well, I lost my thread. But anyway, they love basketball. Oh, Yao Ming, the Houston Rockets center. He's the president of the Chinese Basketball Association. And you go all over China, there's just basketball courts everywhere. So that's their sport. That's their love sport, not so much football.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for the question, Mike. Thank you, Jeff. And we'll go to Andrea.
Thank you very much. It was really great. I just had a question concerning the face recognition in China and the possible surveillance of the Chinese.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, there are cameras. There are cameras everywhere in China, but there are cameras everywhere in the West. but the Chinese are open and honest about it, and they're everywhere in the West, but you just don't, they're hidden. In China, they're just out in the open. They're like on the corners of streets and stuff. Even here in Taiwan province where I live, there's cameras everywhere. So it's no different than the West. Maybe in the middle of the Utah desert, but in agglomerations in the United States and Europe, there are tons of cameras. I don't know about Australia and New Zealand, but in England, there's tons of cameras. So so I don't see any difference. And as far as the internet is concerned, and by the way, I want everybody to understand, nothing like this happens in China unless the people agree to it. Every law is put out for public consumption, criticism, and suggestion. Before they had internet, when we lived in, when we lived here in the 1990s, they would put out they would have these signboards. Where people were walking on the street, and they would have the newspaper up every day for people to read, and they would have laws that are being proposed, and then you could go to your mayor's office or your community office and make suggestions. We don't have that privilege in the United States. So all those cameras, the Chinese love them because facial recognition, they're very sensitive about, and China has passed tons of laws to control the use of facial recognition. But they like facial recognition because it has caught thousands of criminals, financial criminals, guys not paying their divorce and their divorce alimony and child support, scammers. Unfortunately, there's a lot of scammers still in China because the Chinese are so gullible because everything is so honest. So at least in China, it's used for good purposes. And as far as the internet is concerned, we all know that Google and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter are vacuuming everything we do. And in China, they have passed very strict laws. The people were getting pissed, and they started complaining, going to their mayor, going to their community, writing letters to the National People's Congress. We're pissed off the way Tencent and WeChat and Alibaba and Baidu are using our information. And they fined these companies billions of dollars, equivalent, obviously, equivalent. And now, effectively, these massive technology companies in China, Tencent's one of the biggest companies in the world. They are now effectively under government control. I mean, there are government people in these big tech companies with a proctoscope up their backsides the size of a baseball bat or a cricket bat for you Australian people and New Zealand people and English people, etc., watching everything they do. And they have so strictly controlled what information can be used. They shut down DD.show, where you hire a taxi. They fined them like something like $3 billion equivalent, and shut down for months. They couldn't take on any new customers. Compare that to the West, where it's Facebook and Twitter and Google who are telling the government what to do and getting away with murder. So as far as the social credit system, I have a wonderful article on my website about it. Just look up Panopticon, Panopticon. I wrote a wonderful article about it. the Chinese demanded the social credit system because they were sick and tired of scammers ripping them off on the phone, companies dumping pollution in the water. This was back, back during the Hu Jintao times when they were trying to get away from the wild East Buckaroo days. And they were sick and tired of just corruption and lying and cheating and stealing, et cetera. And so they demanded it. No, it's in my file. Evelyn and I have a company in Shenzhen. It has a social credit score number, our social credit score ID number on our limited liability company certificate. Anybody in China can go online for free. It's all open. It's all available to everyone. Punch in our company's social credit score number and find out about us. And so if we got caught evading taxes, it's going to be on there. And so I can make a decision. Do I want to do business with these jerks? They're not paying their taxes. Oh, look, that company got caught dumping lead in a lake. Stuff like that. The social credit system is not to persecute good people. In fact, I have a personal social credit score. My personal social credit score is 672, and it's just like in the United States, it's from 500 to 800. If you have a low social credit score, if I want to buy a bottle of water with WeChat or Alipay, and I scan the QR code, it checks my social credit score. If my social credit score is below whatever it is, I don't know what it is because it doesn't happen to me. I can't buy that bottle of water because they don't trust me to open the door and be honest and take out what I pay for. And so the social credit system is not to persecute good people. It's to punish bad people and bad actors and bad companies and corrupt government officials. So, pick your poison. You are going to be surveyed whether you are in Koh Samui, Thailand, or in bumfuck China. You can't escape it. Why are people so obsessed about China's surveillance and social credit system? We have social credit in the West. It's called Experian, and I forgot all the names now, but these, the credit rating, they're private. They use they use my information to make money, and I have to pay to get my information. And and also in China, if somebody complains about me wrongly, I can make a complaint about them, and then they get their social credit score goes down because they lied about what I didn't do. And so you're not going to get away from it. But China's is open, it's public, it's owned by the people, it's free, and everybody can. Well, I can't go and look, for example, at Franz's social credit personally. No way, I can if I'm Chinese. If I'm Chinese, I can look at another Chinese person's social credit score. As a foreigner, I can't look at a person's social credit score, but I can look at all the companies, the government entities, the government offices, and all that stuff. Okay. So
thank you.
I like it. I like it.
Thank you for the question, Andrea. Thank you, Jeff. I'm just going to take it over to Tom, who is based in Hong Kong before I go to the questions on Zoom.
Thank you. Thanks very much. That was a very illuminating talk. As Pat just mentioned, I'm from Hong Kong, and I've lived in Hong Kong through a number of different periods, but in particular, I was there in the late 90s and for periods before that. But this is more of a comment but I have a question as well. And the comment is talking relates to your comments about how green or clean Shenzhen is. I mean, I would say from looking at Shenzhen from the other side of the border, it was pretty clear that had to happen in some way or other, or the land, the area would really just be written off by pollution. I mean, we could see the pollution coming over from China, from the factories in Shenzhen, quite clearly, quite strongly. But there's, you know, it had to green, it had to become cleaner, greener, and it has done. But however, the question is you say you're living in Taiwan province. Now, I don't know Taiwan province. I'm not sure if you're referring to the Taiwan province, which is an island off the shore of China. But I'd like to ask about that and how you see the reintegration of Taiwan into the Chinese mainland over the next, let's say, 10, 20 years.
That's a really good question. If you look at the history of Taiwan going back 15,000 years, I mean, Taiwan has been a part of China for millennia. And the only reason that Taiwan is in the predicament that it is in today is because after 1949, when the communists kicked the KMT and the Americans out, you know, Chiang Kai-shek and the KMT, you know, flooded into Taiwan. And all of a sudden, before that, the United States and the West all said, you know, Taiwan is an integral part of China. The 9-dash line is all legitimate. All the maps in Europe and the United States all had the exact same map as the Chinese did. And all the way up to 1949, but on October 1st, 1949, when China declared its liberation from Western tyranny, all of a sudden everything changed. The commies were in power. Ooh, we can't have this. So it's just geopolitical, you know, sparring. I mean, this is going on, you know, all around the world. So Taiwan has they speak Mandarin. I mean, I speak Chinese here. They write the same. They write Mandarin. And no one can say that Taiwan did not have any Han Chinese when Chiang Kai-shek flooded into the country with a couple million people. There were already at least 1 million Han Chinese here. I mean, they've been here for millennia. And then in what was it, 1634, I think, it was actually became a prefecture of Fujian province. So from 16 something, I'm sorry, I don't. So from 16 something until 1895, when the Sino-Japanese War happened, and the Japanese and the Japanese beat the Chinese in the first Sino-Japanese War, and they took Korea, and they took Japan, and they took Manchuria, trying to be the white colonists in Asia. They up until then, before the United States even existed, Taiwan was an administrative unit of the Chinese government. So to say that it's not a part of China is just simply, it's just geopolitical, you know, fencing. What's sad for me is that, you know, we have really good friends here, and after Chiang Kai-shek died in 1975. His son took over, Chiang Kai-kuo, and he kept the martial law going. I think it was until 1986. It was the longest martial law in the history of the world, from 1949 until 1986. This island was a fascist dictatorship. And once that happened, the DPP, the KMT was, Chiang Kai-shek took the KMT. The KMT was here, but then the DPP, the Democratic Progressive Party, was created as a counterweight to the KMT. And I'm sure it was organic. I'm sure it originally was organic, from the Taiwanese. But Mossad, CIA, MI6, they're not going to let a good opportunity like that go away. And they have basically gotten their vampire squid fangs into the DPP, and it is now become an instrument of the Department of State in the United States, and Mossad, CIA, MI6. In fact, it's really interesting. Just this week, someone came by, knocked on our door, and it was a DPP lady. And they're having a referendum on the 23rd. It's a ridiculous referendum. It's not worth going into all the details. But I got a package of Kleenex from the DPP, and I got a flyer to tell me how bad the KMT is. The KMT is evil. And then I got a Scotch Guard. I got a Scotch Guard scrub pad to buy my vote. So what worries me is that there is going to be war with China. It is absolutely guaranteed, because Judeo-capitalism cannot survive without forever wars, because the usury and the forever wars, they've got to have those forever wars to keep things going, and they will come up with some kind of a false flag to get mainland China to respond. And of course, since they own the media also, they'll blame it on China. China will be forced to invade Taiwan. It won't last very long, because the Chinese military is far superior to the U.S. military, and they have a supply line of 150 kilometers instead of 11,000 kilometers from Los Angeles and Seattle, or even Hawaii. And they can destroy Pearl Harbor with their hypersonic missiles. They can destroy the American base in Darwin, Australia, with their hypersonic missiles. But what's scary about it is it's going to conflate into a world war really, really fast, because a lot of people don't know that in 1960, China and North Korea signed a mutual defense treaty. So that means if anybody attacks China, guess what's going to happen on the Korean Peninsula? 2.3 million Marxist, Leninist, Confucianist North Korean soldiers are going to storm across the 38th parallel and overwhelm South Korea. And North Korea has hypersonic missiles, and they have hydrogen bomb, MIRVs, that can take out the east coast of the United States. So that's what's so scary about it. And now Russia and North Korea have a mutual defense treaty. North Korea was in Ukraine, getting the Nazis kicked out of Kursk. And so it will rapidly conflate into World War. That's what's so scary. And what I'm afraid of, since the United States is going to get its ass kicked, North Korea is going to bomb Japan, North Korea is going to, might even bomb us. I doubt us, but they will definitely go after Japan.
Mm.
And they will, what I'm worried about is nuclear war. I'm worried that the United States, the Judeo-West will get their butts kicked, and they will be so desperate to save their butts, and they'll use nuclear war. They'll use nuclear weapons on mainland China. That's what worries me.
Wow.
And
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. On that geopolitical note, thank you, Tom, for the question. I think we've got someone on Zoom who's also, we've got a few questions on Zoom. I think we're just running out of time. So if it's possible, you maybe condense the question first, guys, and then the answers, if you could, because quite a few people are interested in the topic. I think from Victor first. Yeah.
Okay, the first one was from Franz. Super
bon.
report about China today. And he said, I noticed that you're using the word Judeo much more than before. Why is that?
Because I did 6 months of research last year. Well, and this year. It's all I did. Basically starting late last fall, I started studying Judaism. And I was shocked and mortified about what I learned about the Talmud and the Torah. And I realize now that is a serious problem for the West, and I think it is a huge reason why the West is so dysfunctional and so messed up. I encourage you, just search the word Judaism on my website. I have amassed a massive amount of information about Judaism, and I'm 71 years old and I don't give a shit anymore, and I'm going to say what I want. And it's frightening, it's disgusting, it's stomach turning. They think they're the master race. They think every one of you in that room, and Franz down there at the bottom, and me, all of us should die. What people don't realize is that Palestine right now, that is the template for us eventually. That is the template that they will use for the rest of the world. And it's going to go beyond Greater Israel. It's going to go beyond, they are out to realize Talmudic and Torah prophecies. And the prophecies are that they're the master race. The Goyim are lower than cattle. We are all lower than cattle. We are expendable, and we need to die. And if we don't die, then we will be their slaves. And they completely destroyed Weimar Germany. They Weimarized it, they occupied it, they colonized it, and they Weimarized it. And now they have colonized and occupied the West. And now the West has been completely Weimarized, and the West has no future. The West is fucked.
Mm.
The West is totally fucked because it has been Weimarized by the master race.
Mm.
And I will just give you a great quote that I learned when I did my thing on Judaism, my library on Judaism. Henry Ford had a great quote. He said, "Lock up the 50 richest Jews in the world and there will be no more wars." And that's exactly the truth. And I'm sorry to say it. And I know what I'm saying could put me in jail in France. I could go to jail for 5 years and be fined 25,000 euros for saying what I'm saying, all over continental Europe.
Yeah.
And so that's it. I'm tired. I'm not mincing my words anymore. I'm going to come out and just say it.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you. This would be another long discussion. I mean, but some valid points. There are many that agree with you. But tonight we'll just take it back to the China. Otherwise, we will all be here forever in this riveting discussion. So let's go back to another one. Thank you for that.
Yes, we got another question from Victor. Hey, Victor, thanks for tuning in. He says, you mentioned Tibet. What's happening there? Total assimilation and control, or some degree of recognition of an ancient Buddhist culture on the altar of mountain water supplying billions of people?
Tibet, when you're communist and socialist, you can do nothing right. Whatever you do, it's wrong. And so in socialism, like Lenin, we have to respect the minority tribes and we have to respect, they're maniac about helping the minorities. China has 55 minorities and they're spoiled. They're even more spoiled than the Chinese. They get whatever they want. They're so spoiled. The government, the Han government, just falls over backwards to help them. So back from 1949 up until about 2008 at the Olympics, when the CIA pulled off the Tibetan terrorist attack in March of 2008 to try to get everybody in the world to boycott the 2008 Olympics. That was all CIA. Up until then, the right thing to do was to let the Tibetans be Tibetans. And so they weren't pushing Mandarin. They weren't pushing integrating the Tibetans into the Chinese economy. They weren't trying to, make them an economic part of the Chinese economy. They just let the Tibetans be Tibetans. And then with the attack, with the CIA attack in 2008, they realized this was during Hu Jintao's time. They realized that it was a mistake. That now everyone in Tibet is totally isolated. They can't go to Beijing University. They can't go to Tsinghua. They can't get a PhD in nuclear physics. And so what they did is they said, okay, well, we've got to teach these people Han Chinese. We've got to teach them to get integrated into the economy, into society, etc. So now, if you go now since 2008, they have had a massive, they've changed all the curricula. It's all now bilingual. They have Tibetan language, they have Han Chinese, and now there's Tibetans working, all over China because they can speak Han Chinese now. And as far as this idea that somehow the Han are exploiting the Tibetans, etc. Tibet has the highest GDP growth in China right now. It's about 10%. And so there's a renaissance there. The infrastructure is dramatically improving. They're bringing in high-speed rail. They're bringing in high-altitude airports. I mean, either Tibet is a part of China or it's not, and it's a part of China, and we can go back into the history. It was a part of China for hundreds and hundreds of years. Then they have to integrate with the Han, just like all the other minority tribes have. You can see them all over the place. And so that's what's happening. And then now this new project that's going to produce as much electricity as either the UK or Italy or Spain. One hydroelectric dam project in Tibet is going to produce as much electricity as one of 3 European countries. The Tibetans are benefiting. Why can't they be driving nice cars? Why can't they be going to the best universities? Why can't they, have big houses like like Han farmers?
Mm.
So it's just, I don't know what to tell you.
I think a lot of the people in the room, a lot of us that were quite unaware of the actual situation in Tibet right now. That was very interesting and very enlightening for all of us, I think. Thank you. Thank you for the question, Victor. And we're going to go to one last question. just so we can get you to bed? I know it's already,
Oh, it's only 9:22 here.
yeah, okay.
Don't
right,
worry
an
about it.
hour ahead of us.
I'll stay as long as the people want to talk.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll go to Vicky, who I think is back in Australia now. She's watching via Zoom.
Yeah, from Vicky, and it overlaps with a question I kind of had as well. What does China do if they mandate a vaccine and don't take it? Goodbye credit score, question mark, question mark. And it's along the similar lines of what I was saying. What if hypothetically you had nefarious actors who were to take control of China and everybody's locked into full kind of social control? Is that possible? And how could that be mitigated?
Well, as far as the COVID vaccine, no one in China was forced to take the vaccine. I know people who didn't take the vaccine. They weren't forced to. There was pressure. I mean, I talked to Chinese, and every day they would go to work and somebody would come by and say, "Have you gotten your vaccine today? Have you gotten your vaccine yet?" And they would say no. But they were nobody that I know of was forced to get the COVID vaccine. And they even came out, and the government, my Baba Beijing, even came out and publicly said, no company, no university, nothing, no temple, nothing. No one can force anyone to take the COVID vaccine. And a lot of people didn't, but unfortunately too many did. And because we know they don't work well, at least I don't know about the Chinese ones, because it's at least attenuated virus. I'm the curator of the Bioweapon Truth Commission, so I know a lot about this subject. I mean, the Western vaccines are bioweapons. They're American bioweapons to kill millions of people. And that's just all there is to it.
So could it be that then the social credit score could be used if, say, power change hypothetically to, force compliance in a population?
Well, as long as the Communist Party is there, and as long as the Communist Party uses their system of bringing people up from the bottom, Xi Jinping started out, like almost like bussing tables and worked his way up to the top. We don't have paid actors, in China doesn't have paid actors, to be government officials. These people are actually educated and trained and come up through the ranks. And so as long as the Communist Party is in power, and as long as they keep using the system they use where they filter out all the bad actors and they get nothing but the cream of the crop at the top, I don't see any bad actors, getting in power. I mean, they have the National People's Congress with almost 3,000 members. They have the State Council with 300 members. They have the Politburo with 25 members, and then they have the Standing Politburo with 9 members at the very top where she is. The system is so well run. I don't see any bad actors getting in power unless the West gets its fangs into the system. And like it almost did, and Zhao Ziying, he was a CIA guy. He was the Gorbachev, the guy, the president who was in power during Tiananmen Square, Zhao Ziying, he was a CIA asset. And so they got that close. I mean, they literally, the Mossad, CIA, MI6 got so close. People don't realize how close they were to getting their fangs into this country. And thank God it didn't work. He's disappeared. He's gone now. He doesn't even exist in the history books. Gorbachev came to Tiananmen, talked to the students. He was another CIA asset. And so anyway, that was as close as they got. And the way she is going after corruption, the way they have removed millions of party members, there was almost 6 million disciplined. But the way that, I can't say millions were kicked out, but I can guarantee you hundreds of thousands were kicked out.
Mm.
As long as they keep filtering out the greed heads and executing the really bad actors like they do, I don't see that happening.
Mm.
The West is so corrupt and so venal and so fetid. We're just so used to it. We just accept it.
Mm.
Our leaders are crooks, and we know it.
Yeah,
We know they're crooks.
Absolutely, we do. I mean,
We know they are. They're fucking crooks. But we're so inured. We just take it, you know. But in China, you know, I could have a whole conversation about the Cultural Revolution, but the Cultural Revolution taught the Chinese to not take bullshit off of the government. The Cultural Revolution taught the Chinese to call bullshit on the government, and so I just don't see it happening.
if I can just jump in here, sorry, Jeff, to interrupt. I'm just going to wind it up, and I'm going to finish up here. But yeah, I think most people in this room, well, almost everybody in this room is here for a reason, because we all know there's something wrong with the world is not right. We know that. A lot of people, we've had a lot of speakers, we've done a lot of research, and we understand that the collective West, there is a problem, and people know their stuff. So I just want to finish up with asking you a question. Before, you were saying the West is fucked, to paraphrase, to actually quote you. So what do you think we could do as a people, not necessarily the governments, but the people, people of the world? What do you think that we could do to change the direction in which we are going, and to redirect us so that we have a more positive, brighter future?
Well, listen to Henry Ford and lock up the 50 richest Jews. I mean, I hate to say it, it sounds horrible,
Yeah.
but as long as the city of London I mean, all of our banks are owned by the city of London.
Yep.
They own our banks. They own our central banks.
Yes, we've had talks on that before. The City of London, you know, the three tri-states. We've had these talks as well.
I don't know.
I mean, looking up.
I don't know what to do. I don't have an answer for you. I think it's just. I mean, we protest in France, and we protest in the United States, and we get maced and rubber bulleted, and nothing happens, nothing changes.
But yet here we are having this conversation, and yet here we are on this little tiny island, 238 square kilometers, and we have a group. We've had 750 people on this little island physically come into this room because we know that something is not right, and that we're going to educate ourselves, we're going to share ideas, discuss these topics, and change the way that we respond to the world rather than react to all the shit that's happening in the world. What would you tell your grandson? Would you tell him, grandson?
Well, I'm worried about him. I've got grandkids and kids.
You wouldn't say anything negative, or would you? Would you tell him this is what you?
Well, the first thing that the West has to do is to find enough courageous legislators and parliamentarians to pass laws to make their central banks public.
Sure. And how about us?
And then push and hope they don't get assassinated. You know, I mean, that's what they do.
Sure.
And so just, you know, push to nationalize at least the central bank.
Yeah.
You know, push to nationalize the central banks. That's the first big step, because they control the money flow. They control the money flow, and so they control everything.
Yeah.
You know,
we understand that. We understand they do. So my last question to you is, and I'm just going to push this point, what would your uplifting message of hope be? Or
To
should
the
I
Chinese or to the
or to the-
Westerns or
or
to the
perhaps
Western?
to get back to you later on? And you-
What I would tell my grandchildren is move to China.
Okay, there you go. I'll take that. Okay, thank you very much. Jeff, I just want to say thank you so much for the really informative talk. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm sure everybody who watched on Zoom and watched in the bunker enjoyed it. We'd love to have you back again.
Yeah.
I mean, you're only 1 hour ahead of us. Also, we have like Dennis O'Connor here from Awakening in Health. He has his own channel, and I'm sure he would love to interview you again if you have time, as we would like to have you on again. So
What I would like to do is give you all a talk, because there's so much, everything that you hear about China is a lie.
Yeah.
Everything that you hear about China is a lie, period.
Mm.
And what I'd like to do is, if you'd like, is come back on and just explain the Mao era. I mean, people don't realize how world changing it was and what it did, you know, for a billion people.
yeah.
And how positive it was,
It's
and
a-
the great leap forward, and the Cultural Revolution. You all have no idea, and I've done a lot of research on it, and it's in my 3 books if you want to buy, if you want to buy them. But
Absolutely.
that is something that needs to be exposed, is the Mao era.
So, like, I would love to see in your 4th book, your uplifting message of hope for humanity. How about that title? But just so you know, so again, like even the people that came to this group when we first started, a lot of people, it was deep-seated biased towards the West or prejudice against China, until we had some very like enlightening talks by, for example, Dr. Eamon McKinney and the group talked, and that really hit the stage. And people were like, wow. Then we had Franz van den Bosch, your friend, watching. He also did a talk for us live in the bunker that really created a shift in people's awareness and people's perception towards a country that generally has been shoved down our throats as a hostile and backward country, and also a country that is pushing its will around the world, where we see now we have way better balance. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about when I talk about what is an uplifting message of hope. We in this group, our perception of the world and our perception of the people who live in the world, with our little sample group as an example, it shows you how things can shift and how perceptions and awareness can shift rapidly. Oh my God, sorry. Stop me if I sound like I'm lecturing. I'm sorry about that, but I'm lecturing. So anyway, so that's how things can change. And this is what we really feel, because we have so many different nationalities come to the bunker, and we have so many different speakers from around the world, that it's very interesting and enlightening to get different perspectives. And it always, in the end, well, for me, it always gives me hope. And I love, I really look forward to another book coming out from you, and another. And on that note, we're going to let you go. Okay, Jeff Brown, thank you so much for the wonderful talk tonight. And thank you to everyone on Zoom. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we'll see you soon. Okay, good night. And
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody. Really enjoyed it. Bye-bye.
have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.